What's up, everyone? Welcome to a new segment. Even though I need to continue the old segments, I understand it's obviously all a work in progress. I think I've said that at various times throughout me trying to figure out what I want to bring to the podcast, but at the same time, letting my thoughts and direction evolve as time has gone on, as I've experienced new things, as I've done new things, as I've gone to go out. Now I've been fortunate enough to go out into the world literally and see new things, meet new people, see different types of cultures, how others, how their way of life is different from we'll say the average American, from the American in general. Period. Literally, and I'll have to go into that in another time. But my objective for Wednesdays is Wisdom Wednesday. I want to bring you passages, verses, thoughts, discussions that have influenced me, and hopefully, even if you can gain just one thing from any points that I bring up. I will have a friend on as well. We're working on our future episodes, so I'm really looking forward to that. But that's going to be my goal. That's what I want to do for Wednesdays, is Wisdom Wednesday, and bring you a few points, a few thoughts, usually backed up by verses in the Bible. Marcus Aurelius' meditations, and we'll see how it evolves. I don't know yet, because obviously this is the first episode I'm doing in relation to Wisdom Wednesday. So I want to jump into it, because I just want to give a quick intro as far as like what's going on briefly, and jump into my thoughts for today. And I want to jump into Ecclesiastes, and even the term Ecclesiastes took me like months to know how to say it correctly. I had several people correct me and correct me and correct me. It's like I'll get it one day, and finally I feel like I think I pronounced it correctly, Ecclesiastes. But this book is the book that was kind of, and not in a bad way, but it was the straw that broke the camel's back, in the sense of it's the one I've taken the longest on to read through, and for whatever reason, it's what drew me back into the Bible. It's what got me to think, because it's in the Old Testament. It can be dark. It's not. I want to use the term morose, but I don't believe it's always morose. But it's very real. I think that's what gravitated me toward the book, and wondering, well, what does this mean? Why are, And then there's segments. There's three that I want to bring up today, but then there's parts where I'm like, yeah, it's true. And one of those things is, for the first thought, Ecclesiastes 1, chapter 1, verse 5. The sun rises and the sun goes down and hastens to the place where it rises. And obviously, if you read the context of that whole beginning of Ecclesiastes, the what I've gotten from it is, if you're feeling overwhelmed, remind yourself, in the good and the bad, hey, the sun rises. It's gonna come down again, and God willing, it's gonna rise again tomorrow. And that's a quick moment for me, where if I am feeling overwhelmed, feeling what's going on, and sometimes for me, it's not even asking a direct question of, oh, what's going on. It is sometimes it's my body reacting. My body, I feel sluggish, lethargic, and I'm like, man, and what I've been able to gain over the past year, let's say a full year and a half now, into Ecclesiastes, back in, I think it was October of 2022 is when I started. It was like October, November, because I can't remember exactly when it was, but it was around that time frame. It was the fall of 2022, and we're like knee deep into our deployment workup. And this was the book that just drew me in, and it was verses like that where I was like, man, I'm feeling like this, and work's going on, but work I've learned, at least for me, it's always been just a part of me. It's not me. It doesn't define who I am. And I will say, as time has gone on, it's been less so of that, where I feel like before, even as I started lessening the amount of gigs I was playing when I was a musician, that in itself too was like, it's like none of this defines me. None of these things around me defined me. It's like, so what does that mean? That's where I would get super existential, or I'd become very pensive on what like. So then what does it mean? What does all this mean? I don't know. And Ecclesiastes has helped me, has guided me through some of these thoughts. And it's like, okay, if material things, and we'll jump into the next point of material things, but if some of these things which are tangible, if they don't mean anything, or if they're not significant, then what is? And that's the deeper question that I jumped into. Is like, well, what is significant to me? What does matter? I guess that's what's made me think in my life in the past year and a half, of like, okay, if again, just reiterating, if things, materialistic things, and seeing how I don't even want to go into consumerism, but it's a part of it, of seeing, what is the American, this is my term, the American bubble, seeing how that influences a person to make certain decisions, and me realizing, at least for me, and the way I am learning that I am built, the way I am framed to perceive and to acknowledge things, what is important to me, right? And so Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verse 12, we'll jump ahead a little bit, and then we'll go back to chapter 3 to end it off. But chapter 7, sorry, verse 12, it reads, "For the protection of wisdom is like the protection of money, and the advantage of knowledge is that wisdom preserves the life of him who has it." I'll read it again. "For the protection of wisdom is like the protection of money, and the advantage of knowledge is that wisdom preserves the life of him who has it." And there's obviously, I could read the entire book of Ecclesiastes and go through every single detail, but hopefully this will maybe encourage you to want to go dive into it yourself. The point is, verses like that, chapter 7, verse 12, where wisdom is the money, and that's where I learned a few years ago, where time over money. I had to create some merch, and because for me, what the important part of all this was, time is actually more important than money. Do you need money? Yes. Does money help you with happiness? Yes. Does it enhance what you're able to do? Yes. Can you give and help others have a meal on their table? Yes, absolutely. But not things. Things come and go, and that's one thing I've told my younger cousins, and even adults, my friends, when we're talking in group, or a few of us or whatever, and it's like, oh, this, like X, Y, and Z, and I'm like, dude, money comes and goes. I promise, money comes and goes. Should we have financial stability? Should we aim for financial independence? Yeah, I'm aiming for financial independence. I would like that, so that my family does not have to feel overwhelmed every single not living paycheck to paycheck, and eventually getting to a point to where we can just enjoy each other's company. Because that's what I've come to enjoy the most now that I'm back, is being able to just sit at home and just relax. And that's, for me right now in this particular moment, it's the best thing. It's I've been able to take, we'll say a little more than a few days off, but in having that break, the best thing for me right now has been just to sit on the couch and just embrace the environment around me, and I've that's what I've appreciated the most. There's a passage in Matthew chapter 19 verse 21 where Jesus says, if you want to be happy, if you want to be successful, if you want to be, what's the word he uses directly? He uses a certain term. If you would be perfect, go sell what you possess and give the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven, and come follow me. Give up all your things, give up everything, because if you want to be perfect, just follow me. And that phrase is so simple, but it's the hardest thing, because it even ends here. The last sentence of that passage is, when the young man heard this, he went away sorrowful, for he had great possessions. He couldn't give up his things. And I'm learning, it's not a day by day thing. Maybe a week by week thing if I'm lucky. Month by month, year by year, for sure. Especially, I'm realizing it's been 7 years since I've started investing, since I've started reading books, particularly nonfiction books. Then in the last year and a half, diving into the Bible, diving into Scripture, and these themes, these things, it's like they're reiterating, they're coming back. All these themes and stories, parables, where a lot of these asks are super simple. They're simple, and I'm bringing up simple but not easy because that's a Jocko principle that I've talked about. Probably not in length, but it's definitely something I've talked about and something that I use immensely. I use it a lot, because most things are not hard as far as the principle themselves, but to execute them. And that's my biggest. So that's another little tangent or little tale for me, is like execution, planning, and creating creating a plan and then executing. I'm trying to be better at executing. That's one of my goals, is to let me execute things that I want to do better. But to draw back to this premise here of protecting wisdom, because wisdom is like protecting money. And when you have the knowledge that wisdom has that value, then you can basically move on with your life. So yeah, for the final point, because to tail off this first episode of Wisdom Wednesday and creating this next segment that we're adding on. Again, hopefully all this will add to what I've done previously, and then enhance just the whole experience, your whole experience coming to the Moving with Life podcast, and all the little things I've dabbed in with is music and finance and economics and financial conversation. Chapter 3 of Ecclesiastes, at least in my little deployment Bible that I carry with me, the title is A Time for Everything. And verse 1 reads, "For everything there is a season, and a time for every matter under heaven." Verse 2, "A time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck up what is planted." Verse 8 reads, "A time to love and a time to hate." Verse 9 is a time for war and a time for peace. And that's just, again, one example in Ecclesiastes where it's put me in my place. It's like, well, you're right. What am I worried about? What am I? And again, it's the dichotomies all over of, yes, good and bad, but it's not that our individual feelings and thoughts and emotions don't matter, but there are lines, not even the sand, because lines in the sand, that's like, that's the picture you can like create. But there are lines, there are rules, there are principles, there are things that are certain. They are certain, and to push and pull what we want versus what we need versus what we think we need and what we think we want. Especially, I think it's so relevant right now, again, coming back from deployment, and, verse 9 reads a time for war and a time for peace. And it's like getting right now, seeing the turmoil, and you can see it on the news. It's not like it's nothing new. It's nothing that hasn't been going on for all of GWAT, and now with everything happening in Israel and the Palestinians and Russia and China and so on and so forth, right? There's time for everything. And to close today's Wisdom Wednesday is the principle of, it's not up to us. We can aim to do right. We can aim to do good. We can aim to help, aim to help others, assist others, and whatever. Ask for help too. Asking for help is just as important. I had a conversation about that recently, about asking for help and how hard it can be to ask for help. But the time for everything. The everything it's not always up to us. And if we're feeling overwhelmed, if we're feeling not in control, we should probably pay attention to that and get outside, get some sun, and think about it. I think a lot of us, I'm included in all these, like, not even stereotypes. I'm included in all these faults in the daily life of what it is, what it is to be here, living in America. As far as what I'm talking about is like distractions on social media, scrolling on TikTok for hours at a time, not setting boundaries and limits to all that external stimulation and information that it's not always completely relevant to what we want to accomplish in our lives. So I'll end it there. I hope that you were able to gain something from this first Wisdom Wednesday, and I look forward to doing this some more. Again, I have a buddy that he's working on some themes. We've talked about the themes. Now we're trying again to create a plan to then execute, and that's the goal for that. So I will continue trying to do these individually as well as with my buddy, and I'm going to keep it very vague right now, because we'll have a whole thing with him, and once we get that going, hopefully that just turns into a snowball effect. And hopefully, if you have anything good or bad to say, you can leave it in the comments. You can like, subscribe to the channel. But my goal again is to execute, take action, and bring themes that I feel that I've seen reoccurring. Just again, more not even day after day, but month after month, year after year. These are some of the things that have stuck out to me the most, that I have to reel myself back to then gain some perspective to then be able to move on and go on to the next thing. So until next time, thank you, and we'll see you all later.